Parliament has controversially passed the political parties regulations that ban public rallies in the coming elections as a measure of preventing further spread of COVID-19. Instead, rallies and political party internal voting will now be held through virtual meetings, resolutions by circulation, phased elections, secret ballot, open ballot, lining up behind candidates, and election by electoral college. But how do these new regulations affect the credibility and integrity of Uganda's electoral process, which have previously been contested? Tonight, we host Busiro East MP Medad Segona, political activist and author Dr. Miriam Atembe, and Mr. Emmanuel Dombo, the new Director of Information and Publicity of the NRM. Gentlemen and lady, welcome to the show. The three of you are on the spot, and I'm going to begin with you, Mr. Emmanuel Dombo. In the United States, where we have 3 million cases of COVID-19, 130 deaths, life is moving on almost as normal. In Uganda, we have 1,000 cases, tremendous numbers of recovery, and 0 deaths. We are digging in as if the world is crumbling upon our heads. Why?
Well, I want to take this opportunity to first of all thank our viewers and to say that nobody wishes what is happening in the United States to happen here, because we have already seen the type of arguments and sanctions the people in the United States have raised against their own president. Many have argued that has failed to provide leadership to protect their people. We are very grateful that in Uganda, President Museveni and the scientists and the entire government have played their role in preventing what would have been a disaster and protecting the people of Uganda to the extent that nobody has died so far. And how we wish that we can continue like that, that nobody would succumb to COVID-19.
Tell me, we have had so many contested elections. Isn't this just the NRM party being so disingenuous by trying to tell us, using an excuse of COVID-19 to deny people the chance of really meeting the candidates, the leaders who are going to take us forward the next 5 years, to deny that interface with them so that they can choose from an informed position? Because when you say scientific, for sure, not many people are going, first of all, to have radios and TVs, and even media ownership is a partisan issue in Uganda.
I think what is important now is to note that because nothing has happened so far, cannot be a guarantee that nothing will happen should we relax on our regulations that have been running the country. And when you look at the media practices, you are absolutely right. First of all, according to the studies that have been done, about more than 80% is accessible by media, either by radio, by internet, by television. And even previously, where we have had open elections, there have been contestation of elections. Not because they were scientific, but because always somebody who is about to lose will want to create a reason why, or a justification why he's losing. So to us, the question is, when you look at the president, he took an oath to protect the Constitution, but also to safeguard the lives of the people of Uganda and their property. If people had died in Uganda to COVID, you would have seen the very people who are arguing against what is happening now, their arguments would have been different. So we would rather have no death and find out ways of complying with the current situation, but also defend the Constitution, which the president swore to uphold. In the circumstances, what would you have done, supposing you are the president?
Let me ask Dr. Matembe, when Parliament and the executive, I should use the word conspire, to do what they have done, is there anything that ordinary citizens can do to redeem themselves?
First of all, First of all, I want to correct you when you call me political activist. I'm a distinguished senior citizen in this country.
You have that.
And
okay.
Currently, I'm the chairperson of Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy, CEDU. And you know what CEDU does, interested in transparency and integrity of electoral processes. So I'm glad to be here to discuss these issues. First of all, I want to tell Dombo here and Ugandans that it is not Museveni who is preventing Ugandans to die. In fact, he has no powers of anybody's death because the lives of people are not in his hands. This is not to say that he's not doing a job, he is doing his job. But I want to tell everybody listening to me here, I move in this town. People are in this town. Everybody is freely moving everywhere. There is, as far as they are concerned, COVID is in NRM's heads. Because for them, you don't even see mask. You don't even see distance. You don't, therefore, all these regulations and rules, they are in Dombo's head, they are in NRM's cabinet, whatever where they are. But among Ugandans, I am telling you, and I know it, and even before the lockdown, Simanyi lockdown opened, people in Ruzira there, we were just walking, moving. After all, you remember how they deceived they were going to bring masks. I don't know where they ended. I've never seen any mask of their kind. Therefore, Ugandans are moving freely. They are going everywhere. These rules he's talking about, which President Museveni and his government have put, and they are preventing Ugandans from dying. It is this God. I'm glad our motto is for God and my country, except that we turned it for our stomach and clans. But God is the one protecting us. You cannot say that it is Museveni's government which has stopped people from dying. And by the way, they say that the sick now, they have been 1,000 who so far they say are sick. You need to go to Masaka Hospital and see the kind of sickness are talking. You need to see how people are complaining, how they are locked inside these hospitals. No medicine, no nothing. They are not sick, they are there, but they are containing them there. You need to know, I'm not contesting that there is no COVID. Although I have seen COVID in America, all those suffering people, I have never seen any COVID patient. I have never had any relative. Everybody I have talked to, none of the people have seen any COVID patient. This is not to say that they are not there hidden in the hospital, because me, I'm not there. But I want to point a whole picture that the way the COVID thing is so exaggerated, and the not dying and healing of the people is attributed to the great job done by President Museveni. And therefore he has a right to violate all rules, violate become a total dictator. Because let me tell you, you cannot be the NRM party, yes, you are the one in government, and you come with a rule and dump it there. You don't consult. In a situation like this, let me tell you, in a situation like this, consultation is very, very important. First of all, the Electoral Commission itself went and consulted Museveni, and then they came with the scientific mode, put it there, as if there were not other people interested in these elections. Then we started saying, but what is this? Then they started consulting us. Now, the government sits. They know they have other parties. They know they have iPod. He will tell us whether these rules went to iPod first. They know they are not the only one in the game, but they just go there and enter parliament and say, this is what we must do. And what they are doing is eroding the internal party democracy. The party's democracy is being eroded, and they are eroding the constitutions of the parties, and they are dictating over whatever is happening. The government is dictating everything that must be done in other political parties. And they just decide and say, this is what you must do because of COVID. They finish.
Honorable Medad Sagona, I know you went against this, and you are a member of the committee, and you did not sign these rules. I think even you wrote a minority report, right?
Yes, I did.
But do your colleagues in Parliament understand that by passing these resolutions, this could work against them? Or do you get a sense that perhaps the feelings and the desires of the party chairman of the NRM supersedes the desires of all other members of Parliament? Because it appears the 10th Parliament is going to go in history as a Parliament that has quite done a lot of damage.
Well, first and foremost, I think I must say we are called by God to do different things that are within our means. As to whether they understood the implications of what's going to happen to them, whether they're going to be rigged out in their own party is a different matter. To me, the core thing is whether they actually understood what they were passing. And that's why you said in your intro that we have passed it controversially, I can add, rather acrimoniously. So I want to say, when it all started, I think, it started as a rumor that Cabinet was coming up with these regulations. After that rumor, the following day, the regulations were brought to Parliament. We were even lucky. You know, sometimes when people are attacking Parliament, they forget that even the laws now we are relying on were made by Parliament. One of the wise things Parliament did then in passing the Political Parties and Organizations Act was a requirement under Section 27(1) that when the minister makes such regulations, he is required to bring them for approval before Parliament. I think that was wise. I don't know if the 10th Parliament would be able to do it with the kind of attitude today that, you know, the gentleman is the chief executive of the country, so leave everything to him. Bikwase Yoweri. That kind of attitude. The discussion centered around two things. The first, does the minister have the power to make regulations that have an effect on amending the Constitution of this Republic, the Political Parties and Organizations Act, and thirdly, amending the respective constitutions of the parties without the parties' consent?
So this is what he did?
That's what they did. For example, Section 10 of the Political Parties and Organizations Act refers you to comply with Article 71 and 72. Articles 71 and 72 require you, political parties, to apply and uphold democratic principles. And the democratic principles include, among others, the full participation of the members of those parties. It has been interpreted by the Constitutional Court. We placed that before them. Now, where you are limiting the democratic participation of the individual members of those parties, where you are taking away the powers of the organs of the parties, you are infringing on the democratic principles. Inevitably, therefore, you are infringing on the Constitution. And we need to tell them, look, what you're doing has the effect of amending the Constitution either directly or by infection. And they were agreeing, but their justification was, but there is a problem. We said, if the problem is such that, one, you cannot amend the Constitution, the parties cannot meet through their organs, lining up, which is a design they adopted as NRM, is impossible, then what kind of election are you going to organize? Article 61 of the Constitution requires the Electoral Commission to organize, and this is to me the bottom line, to organize a regular, free and fair election. One, can you guarantee a free and fair election where the situation is that the voters and candidates cannot interface? Two, information cannot flow from one side to another. I listened to my brother, the Honorable Emmanuel Dombo, saying 80% of this country is covered by some form of network. Where? In Butaleja, where you come from?
Which network?
Which TV do you watch? So the point is, Voter protection. Today you know that the only way that we protect our votes is using border borders. Border curfew starts at 5 o'clock. Voting stops at 4. You transport the ballots through the night, following them from one polling station up to the sub-county and then the district. Border can't move. They cannot carry passenger. You cannot carry more than 4 people in your vehicle. I have more than 300 polling stations, and somebody expects me to have 300 vehicles running after my votes. What kind of free and fair election can we organize? I think we've been guided by some non-political players, including religious leaders, saying, if you cannot organize a free and fair election, start talking about alternatives to that.
Yes.
Well, there is an argument of extension. I'm not even yet there. Although an extension is not an evil thing in situations like where we are. And somebody might think, oh, because you're an incumbent, you want to remain there. I think I am fairly placed enough to win with or without this kind of thing. But look here, the article that requires the voting to be done in January is an article we have just amended. For example, it's not an entrenched provision. We can even say, no, let's concentrate and fight COVID and vote in April.
Yes.
Okay, let me look the issues of crowding. Today, even Dr. Matembe talked about this. If you go to downtown and go Nikikubo, you know, it is so crowded. There's nothing like social distancing there.
Yes, right.
The people you find there are even more than a rally, a typical rally.
Yes.
And this is daily. Do you understand that? Or you don't care about them?
How about burials in the villages?
No more.
In Butaleja, where he comes from. There are no thousands going for
We've been
burials.
seeing them on TV.
First of all, let me respond to my friend Honorable Matembe, because he said what is happening in Uganda is not because of the wisdom and decisions of the leader, but it is because of God.
What did he do special? It's different
One
from
at
other
a time.
countries.
One at a time. His argument would therefore mean that perhaps in countries where people are dying, God hates them, or there is no God. Even the most
I hope
countries,
by
just,
he you are not referring to me.
just no, I'm responding to what Honorable Matembe has talked about. Because by talking about the United States of America, Italy, you saw what happened in all those countries. The only difference was the type of leadership and the decisions that were made.
That's what you think.
No, that's what I'm telling you. Because how else would it be that in Uganda, because of, I'll give you one example, which I've always shared with people. Look at the children from Watoto Church who came in and they were about 15, 20. And because of the decision that was taken to close the airport, they were caught before they had gone into the community. Supposing the following Sunday, those children went into church, and the various services that were there on that day, what would have happened?
How about the truck drivers that were let into the community?
But you know that the standard operating procedures that have been developed by government have minimized that.
No. You see, if you will receive this information.
Please, I'll take it.
First, I was the first to raise this alarm in Parliament and advised the government to close the airport. Two,
That was good.
which they did not do, by the way, and that's how we got into the chaos. Two, the truck drivers. I said, look, how do you allow truck drivers into a country without being checked? And then the president's answer was the typical arrogance of saying, but those are stupid. I said, they could be stupid, but they are infecting the other stupid or non-stupid people.
I wasn't there, and I wouldn't know how the
It
president...
was on TV.
how the
but
president
because there is no
responded.
TV in Butaleja, you did not see.
Could be I was not on TV that day. But one thing I want to tell
But you can use it to campaign.
that if you want to moderate two things, save life, but also life continue. Because we have medications coming in.
Yes.
We have our goods going outside. And the only way they can be transported is by the trucks. One of the things also we must appreciate is that our capacity as a country, when COVID had just come in, could we do immediate testing at the border? Is there a rapid test which is available somewhere that could be applied? So in the circumstances, how do you moderate on life while at the same time, without constricting the economy to the level of people dying because goods are not coming in? So these are issues which nobody has a solution. And I basically wanted to respond to what Honorable Matembe has said. That is not because of the ingenuity of the leader
It is not.
and the good decisions that were taken, but it's an act of God. I want to say, yes, Uganda is a good, God-loving country, but also the countries where people are dying, they are also God-loving. Now the question we have here, in Parliament, I don't know what happened. But me, what I know, we have two issues that must be considered. And I'll come to the issue of borders with the other regulations that could be readjusted. When our party, the National Resistance Movement, was invited before the Committee of Parliament to make presentations, I did attend. And these are issues we raised to the committee and said, but would you want to find out what would happen on the polling day? Is it possible to begin negotiating and lifting or waiving on the issues either? Because what has been happening during the lockdown here in Kampala, people were given stickers and they were given permission to travel at night. Right now there is a curfew. I am in the studio, but I'm going to travel back home, even when the curfew exists. So, is it possible for the Electoral Commission, for instance, to create an opportunity and give exclusive permission to the candidates to give authorization to people using border to follow up votes? Is it possible to develop regulations which will enable media operationers to give access to every candidate
And in
a way?
in that case, the border would not carry COVID.
Which one?
When they are given a sticker, that means that border cannot transmit COVID
No.
because of the sticker.
Because the border would also transmit COVID during the day.
Exactly.
But at night, it's because of the social practices that were deliberately prevented and the crime-related activities why borders were prevented from moving. So if a border is going to follow up your votes at
So
night,
it's not COVID but crime.
both.
Honorable Dr. Matembe, do you think now, considering what has happened and the resolutions have passed, probably, because I'm saying this because you represent Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy, and it looks like democracy now is
completely eroded.
yes. Should they boycott elections?
Who?
Maybe
For
those
me,
who want to.
First of all, before you do that, I want to correct the impression Dombo is causing. I'm not saying that other countries don't have God. Let's first iron out this COVID thing. In Uganda here, this situation of COVID, which the fortunate part that we have not had somebody die, and we have not seen serious, let me tell you, I haven't seen or heard of any serious case of sickness of COVID. Let me tell you, this COVID you see, the way it affects the other people out there in the cold weather, in their seasons and so on, is very, very different from the way it has been affecting us here. I talk to doctors, I talk to people who are involved in these things. Our level of immunity, I don't know,
As Ugandans?
they tell us, because of the conditions in which we have been living, I'm not going to go in details of this thing, but we have got some kind of immunity that those people do not have. Many of those people who are dying like that. Secondly, the weather was adding on to their dying. Thirdly, this COVID, by the time it reached here in Uganda, it was 3 months when all these people, it hit them without knowing. So by that time it came in Uganda, people had known, oh, this thing is a serious thing, so what do we do? But when these Ugandans portray, moreover, President Museveni as an individual, and they say the rules of president, the thing that has turned him into a real dictator. Like when we fought AIDS here, you don't know how much I traversed this country fighting AIDS. But eventually it was him who was getting all the honor and all that. I don't mind. But when you portray, oh, the man has saved us from this terrible thing, and they go onto it, they hang on to it, and they don't know how people are suffering down there. They hanging on COVID, and they violate all the constitutional democratic principles in the name of COVID. And Dombo sits here and tells us that President Museveni stood up and swore to uphold the constitution, which he has been murdering, forgetting that this is the constitution for which I broke my back. My back broke during those years of bad roads. Dombo knows I used to stand up in parliament. I used to stand up when I'm in a cabinet meeting because my back broke because of traversing this country, making a constitution, which President Museveni has been murdering. He swore to keep it. He removes the term limit. He swore to keep it. He brings all this army that invaded the parliament and beat people and removed the age limit. He swears to keep it. He brings regulations, mayor regulations. When did mayor regulations ever amend a constitution? I mean, no wonder, I said no wonder Kamuntu. When did Kamuntu ever know law? When did he study law? When did he know law? That he brings a law, and the Attorney General, I heard them saying, yes, this is necessary because we must hold elections. The fact that you don't want to violate the other deadline of holding elections makes you violate all other democratic principles. How can you intervene? Political parties are supposed to have their internal governance rules and processes that manage them. You come as President Museveni with your minister, you command now. You parties, you have to organize like this. You must do this. And you, leadership, executive, you stay there. You must appoint your leaders. So for us as SEDU, we are saying with all these regulations, first of all, of course, with the Electoral Commission, with its scientific elections, bearing in mind that actually there are no TVs or radios or what networks spread there, and then add on these regulations, we categorically say, right from the word go, no free and fair elections, no democratic elections in this country. If they go ahead and hold them, in fact, for me, I would say, Segon, I don't know which in your party, me, I would say, why don't you let President Museveni and his NRM go in the field and elect their people and come and be in power? Because all this, you can't. I don't see how you can be ruled and you say you are still parties.
You know, Honorable Segona, coronavirus, I suppose, is real. Today I was just looking at a piece of report from South Africa where they're organizing 1 million graves because they think probably the thing has not hit them hard in Gauteng province, I think that takes Johannesburg. Real graders digging up because they're preparing for the worst.
At least maybe they are digging.
Yes, but maybe you can, you know, err on the side of caution, Honorable Segona.
Should we be doing that too?
No. I think if anyone, or if anything has suffered atrocities under the Museveni regime, it is the constitution. It is the law. Since the advent of this thing called COVID-19 in March, the president started right away. Of course, not without appreciating his role and contribution. When this thing had just started, we all panicked. And the president panicked, I think, twice. The double panic button was pressed. One, because he's an old man. And therefore, he's a quicker and nearer candidate, perhaps, than you and I, in his thought. Two, I also appreciate the mind of a president, seeing people die the way they were dying in Italy, in US, in Spain, elsewhere, etc.
Painful.
But the point I have been laboring to explain to the likes of my brother Dombo is that there is a neater way of doing things, first and foremost. If you want to amend the Constitution, there is a neater way of amending the Constitution. The jurisprudence in this country is that you cannot amend the Constitution without a bill to amend the same. That's number one. Number two, you remember when the president issued the original directives. First, they were not lawful because he didn't have the power even to make them. Two, some were not even necessary. And I could only forgive him that the panic button was pressed. But he did not consult. Three, it came with serialized lies by the government. We are going to give you posho, people of Wachiso and Kampala, beans. The only posho I have seen was the posho the president was eating at Entebbe, which was prepared by his wife.
Did he eat it?
Well, I guess he ate it because he said this is how you're going to do it.
That was for demonstration.
Demonstrate. Where did he get it from? It was for the vulnerable poor. The vulnerable poor were not receiving it, and I've never received that portion in my constituency, for example. Now, the president went on an expedition to rape this constitution. He was advised, we advised him in Parliament, that the neater way of doing this thing is declare a state of emergency. When you declare a state of emergency, you trigger the participation of all institutions of state. He wanted to remain in the field alone. Do you know the first thing he did before he even had pronounced these regulations? He called the Speaker and Chief Justice, told them, I want you to close. You close Parliament, you close court. They both told him squarely, Mr. President, you do not have the powers to do that. Maybe the Chief Justice was more kind and said, no, don't worry, I will find a way of doing it for you. And that's how the Chief Justice ended up issuing the practice directions he did. The Speaker said, sir, how do you close down Parliament? Supposing you want supplementary, which he would ask for the following day anyway. Where will you get it from? The Speaker said, no, you can't close Parliament. He wanted to remain in the field alone. Now, the Constitution guarantees the freedom of movement. All these liberties that have been transgressed upon by just a decree or pronouncement, the president said, you can't do this, you can't move, etc. And I am embarrassed that my brother Emmanuel is not embarrassed to support all these things with all the vigor. We are not saying that measures were not necessary. But where you build institutions based on the Constitution, you must respect those institutions. You must let them play their role. Now, yes, there is COVID, because you asked me a direct question. There is COVID. COVID can never be a justification, by the way, to transgress on the Constitution. You can only prevent COVID because you swore to protect the people of Uganda, their lives and property, but only in accordance with the Constitution. For example, you cannot start bringing Interahamwe to come and tell me that they are protecting me. And because they are protecting my life, you're doing what you swore to do. The president has raped this Constitution. Do you know how much money he has been paying LDUs who do not belong to any structure of the armed forces?
Who have finished
you get casual laborers, recruit them, group them up without any legal basis, give them guns. In the end, they kill Ugandans.
Hold on, to your point, Honorable Segona, Dr. Matembe, Honorable Emmanuel Dombo. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guests tonight are Honorable Medad Segona, Dr. Miriam Matembe, and Honorable Emmanuel Dombo. And we're discussing the resolutions that were passed by Parliament this afternoon. Honorable Emmanuel Dombo, you know well that the NRM election infrastructure really will include the Uganda police, LDUs, the military, the RDCs, sometimes even Bank of Uganda. And on top of that, now you have brought even resolution. Somebody's, standing against the NRM.
Bank of Uganda to do what?
I mean, because the money can be used from there.
I'm not aware.
Well, somebody standing against the NRM is not running against the party, is running against the state.
But
On top of that, you have brought these regulations.
By the way, ask Segona. We have tried to run against him as a NRM party and he has been defeating us. So really, what you are talking is possible because Honorable Segona has done it. And many people have run against our candidates.
So if Segona has beaten the state...
And you think it is okay that I have been defeating the state?
Not defeating the
You
state.
can proudly say it.
We have been competing as NRM as a party. But because we are the biggest party in Uganda, and because also the incumbent president comes from our party.
By the way,
there are advantages.
I am saying that the opposition is running against the state because I've seen institutions of government getting into partisan politics on the side of NRM.
No, but I've seen institutions of government, the police, for instance, when they did Democratic Party were conducting elections and they had challenges, I've seen institutions of government going to help them. Was it a party?
Actually, in Mukono, police was deployed to protect those because they are closer to the NRM.
So I wouldn't know. I know many political parties in Uganda. They are enjoined in this right. Honorable Semogerere, one time when he was, they were conducting internal elections in the Democratic Party and they had challenges. Everybody ran to the police station. So it is true.
No. They were being beaten by your people in Rukunjiri. They ran to the police and they were not protected. It was 1996 general election.
That was 1996 general
Yes.
election, but I don't think that is what happened. But I know that many times the Democratic Party, many people who are not members of government, have had challenges either in their internal elections or in their personal security, and government has offered them security in whatever they have been doing. So first of all, I want to dispel the issue you are raising, that running against NRM candidate, that you are running against government infrastructure. Because
you use it.
Ministers have been losing. Ministers have been losing. NRM ministers.
But do you know what they have said? For example, when General
I'm not saying
lost,
that you cannot run against the state and
when
beat it.
General Tafiri lost, do you know his exclamation? He said, "What did I do to the First Lady?" Even those ministers that lose, they lose to the same state.
We have Honorable Brigadier General Muhwezi from Rukunjiri.
Yes.
He lost.
Again, he will tell you that the people who facilitated his loss were NRM.
So, in the circumstances, I wanted to dispel that one. Although it has been a belief in many people whenever people lose an election, that has been the argument they have been advancing. I lost an election myself in Butaleja.
To DP.
I lost an internal election. And did I blame the state? Did I blame anybody? It is something I took freely, and I chose to do other things just because I knew.
What is Dombo talking about? That the state here, that NRM party is not equal to the state and equal to Museveni. I mean, who doesn't know in this country that NRM is the state, is Museveni? Is there anybody who doesn't know that? I mean, I've seen this police.
Patrick,
you see,
I think Dr. Matembe raised an issue which was not responded to. Just a day before the Electoral Commission issued the roadmap, and which also was mingled with regulations, they first had to go and discuss it with the president. When the chairman of the Electoral Commission was put to task, he told the journalists that no, because he's the president, we are talking about money. We had just passed their budget. So which business did they have in Entebbe? And it turned out, amongst all the competitors, it is only President Museveni and his party that came up to support the regulations. By the way, surprisingly, the instinctive reaction of the Secretary General of NRM, Honorable Kasule Lumumba, was to say, no, who did they consult? Etc. But they said, hey, but your chairman has already accepted. And when she appeared in the committee with them, she was now comfortable. So, equality of NRM party and the state is in practical, real practical sense. One, Look at what happened, for example, in Ntungamo in the last election. Honorable Mama Mbabazi was scheduled to be there, to be in Ntungamo on the program. NRM brought his youth. They said we will not allow him to camp here where he was scheduled to be. He went to Kabale, they followed him, and they deployed him, their people there. Until his youth also ran out of patience and beat them. Do you know what happened when they beat them? The president said, how can you beat a Ugandan? When other Ugandans are beaten, no problem. You beat an NRM, that's a prince.
But look, when NRM wants to hold its meeting, whether it is the NEC or SEC or caucus, or caucus,
okay.
or their caucus, they hold it in State House. State House is a state institution. The food, everything that they go there and eat, is the budget for what? For State House. Can Vesije or Muntu or Mau go to State House there and hold functions? Because a party is supposed to be separate from the state. But for here, the party is the state. You look at these police.
Even Chankwan.
Look at these police.
I will respond to that. I used to believe so because I was a very great admirer of the American democracy. Until recently when President Trump came on the scene. And he basically has done all the things that I previously thought they were contrary to democracy. President Trump, as an incumbent, he has held partisan meetings for his party.
You know what they call him?
In the White House.
So
and this is the democracy.
Is it the measure of your standard? Or
this absolutely. If you don't take the measure of America, where else would you want to compare from when you are comparing democracy? So there are advantages that come with the incumbency.
Very serious.
Even if tomorrow Segona becomes the president of Uganda and he's going to run for an election, there are advantages that were cushioned in the constitution that he will enjoy because of that.
You know, it is interesting. Honorable Dr. Lulu Mebaiga, myself, and I think with the support of Honorable Dombo, we attempted to bring something called the Presidential Transition Bill in the 9th Parliament where we were together. And do you know what happened? They stampeded us. It did not even go beyond granting leave to bring that bill.
But transition is bill transiting from what to what?
You can see. We were looking at all those, how much advantages of incumbency do you enjoy? But just because it had something presidential transition, they said, they never looked at this, the text.
Because
let's go back to this regulation. And I think, Honorable Medad Segona, perhaps this should be something good, and this is what I'm trying to say. Why? Because, look, many people have said that you in the opposition, you're keyboard warriors, you are the internet brigade, this is where you do best, you only make noise on social media. This is your home turf.
You see,
beat them on the game that you know best.
Even where I enjoy a level of strength, as long as it will give me unfair advantage over others, I will not support. Why? Because as a leader, you're supposed to be selfless. That's number one. For example, if I enjoy internet power and you enjoy it better, okay? And another person is not comfortable with that. But forget about comfort, by the way. It's also about, we're talking about democracy in the real sense. We're not talking about ritualistic, cosmetic elections. We're talking about an election in the real sense of an election. Let's even talk about the access to internet. Do you know, in the East African region, we have the most expensive internet here in Uganda. Yesterday or today, the minister was talking about trying to reduce the cost of internet. That's number one.
That's
number
good.
Two, if you're using a phone like I saw President Museveni holding, the other small one, okay, will you access internet? Number three, how many radio stations do you have in this country? I understand we have about 37 television stations. Radio stations, could they be like, are there 100 or so, or thereabout? And you have in Parliament alone, for example, today, you have over 467, okay, plus including the new ones that they have just created. And assume, on average, 4 candidates per constituency. You're talking about over 2,000, over 3,000 candidates on TV, on radio. In addition, you people operators of these television stations, you have your programs, prepaid, pre-arranged and organized, etc. Where is the time going to come from for people to campaign? It's a very ineffective way. But look, if the situation is so bad, so bad, and you need to balance, to strike a balance between protecting life and democracy, to me, the way forward would be, I must protect life. I can suspend the election in accordance with the law. First, I said, I am not one of those who say, extend the election for 2 years, 3 years, etc. First, let's put it to test. We still have time to fight COVID. This government is expiring in May 2021. Let's go up to March. If by March the situation is still as bad as the president tells us it is, I am not very sure. I may not be statistical. Perhaps he has better access to the statistics. Then we can talk of extending. Now, when you extend, because the mandate of the government would have expired in May, that's where we go for the proposal by the Elders Council, by the Religious Council, who are saying then talk about a coalition, talk about national dialogue, talk about how will you form government since your tenure has expired. My tenure as member of parliament would have expired. Then we talk about how do we transit in this situation of COVID.
Emmanuel, I remember when the president was addressing the nation on the issue of schools, he came up with the proposition that they should be able to buy TV sets and radios for communities so that they maybe put it in a village and then people can come together and watch TV and hear and listen to radio. I wonder whether, because that's an admission that people don't have radios and don't have TVs, so they cannot be reached. So is government going to
and that
provide...
by converging to watch TV together...
because an admission by the president himself...
They will not spread COVID.
There was an admission by the president himself. He's saying he's going to buy TVs and radios for the people.
But when did you see the mask?
Yes, I'm still telling him, now that is something bigger, but they failed to provide masks. They failed to provide food. Now, how are you going to provide TVs and radios to all the country, to all the people of Uganda?
There are two things you are raising here. Because the TVs you are talking about are for the education of the children should the lockdown continue. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the statistics and the studies that have been done, and you have them, I believe, about the accessibility to the media, the various medias, studies have been done by international regulators, which show that about 70% of Ugandans are accessible to radio, either by phone, people have radios on their phones, either by radios in their respective villages. TV still...
So when the chief executive of the country was proposing to buy people TVs and radios, he was not informed?
No, he is informed. But
so they are not there.
When you are talking about...
That's an admission that they are not there.
When you are talking about children studying and campaigning where people can sit in a rally...
It's the same platform you want to use to reach the people. How you're going to reach the children is how you're going to reach the people. And he's saying they are not there. He was proposing to buy them. Is there capacity to do that anyway?
Capacity to buy, that was...
When you have failed to buy masks and provide food for people in Kampala and Wakiso.
I think capacity to buy, the nation has capacity. Although what we do not have now, recently, it was over the weekend, the president of Uganda was launching a factory in Namambe that is going to produce radios that they
Wait
can
a minute. So those are the radios you're going to distribute for people to listen to the messages from politicians?
Not for politicians. Was
No,
he doing it for politicians?
No, but you need to reach the voters.
I am
are
vindicated.
What platform are you going to use?
But you think NRM is an exclusion? Because you are talking as if NRM will be having a different media,
Yes.
and other parties are going to have a different media.
Yes, it is an exclusion.
I don't know whether my...
Because NRM
Dr.
is going to
Matembe.
be, NRM as a party is going to be subjected to the same regulations and to the same
Excuse
conditions.
me.
No.
What do you think the
Okay,
candidates of
Dr.
NRM are
Matembe.
going to use? Please.
First of all, when you talk of these TV and radios, how many times shall I tell or remind Ugandans that President Museveni is a liar? He has lied and lied and lied until we really feel embarrassed to have a whole president who tells lies.
Are you sure?
Please leave me alone. Who doesn't know President Museveni's lies? Right from the beginning, I will never give me the last time. This is my last chance. This is all these lies, including lying people about these papers, the masks. And me, whenever he says something, I say, you wait, he's lying. And it comes to be a lie. He stood there when he was addressing us and said, when COVID is still here by June or July, anybody who talks about elections would be mad, sitting here. He said it, I was there listening. And I told people, he is lying. Because me, I always say it, he is lying, you wait. He wants other people not to prepare, and then he will come out with his elections and he'll proceed with them. And this is what has happened. And I told people, you wait, the mask will not be there. They went and went to the factory and saw mask and so on. They went and launched the mask in Arua. I've never seen where the masks went. Down the road, they said, anybody can make masks and that kind of thing. And by the way, I have seen videos in Masaka Hospital. These people whom they take as COVID patients, they call them symptomatic or whatever. They are crying out. Nobody takes them any aspirin. They are not sick. They are saying, what are we doing here? They don't give them any food. They give them kahunga and beans. They don't, if you want kapanado, you don't see it. I mean, they put video, they take themselves, and we see. These things are happening. Even the money which they get, the other day they asked for another 1 trillion point over 8. I don't know where they put the money. This Dombo is here telling us they are keeping it for their own NRM people. They are in a better.
Yes, I know.
They are in a better position now. This is the best. I told Ugandans that this is the best time President Museveni will get through these elections very well. It is the best opportunity he has had. And therefore, because he has been out there, others have been locked down, other people don't have money, those who are in the business who want to contest elections, they cannot. These people who are in parliament have been getting their allowances, they've been getting this supplementary budget which they share. They are already financially okay, they are all right.
Which people?
Compared your majority people in parliament who have passed this thing. He is there also, but who have passed this law which is violating everybody's right. By the way, you should have given these rules which they passed. They are terrible, that people cannot choose their candidate, they appoint them. You appoint a candidate. How do you appoint a candidate to be your presidential candidate? Appoint him from where? When they are supposed to be electing them. And some of these, they are saying some of them should stay there. They don't choose, they can extend their term. Those rules, you should have read them. They are just conscripting the whole democracy has come in a basket like this, and they are saying we go through elections. And for us, we are saying, but sir, since you have always amended the fantastic provisions of the Constitution and you have stayed there, what's wrong with saying, okay, if you cannot go up to much waiting a bit, why don't you, since you are saying this is too much emergency where you are violating all the democratic principles of elections with internal parties and even beyond violating Constitution, since the situation is so bad, why don't you say emergency, declare emergency, 6 months we postponed and see where coronavirus takes us. And you can even postpone again, because if it is a matter of life, who will ask you? Let me tell you, Kamara, when you ask Ugandans, do you prefer, are you really dying to see elections? They will tell you, these businessmen, these people whose rent cannot be paid. I was depending on my house for renting. President Museveni, as if he built it for me, he ordered, you people who are renting, who have houses, don't ask money from tenants. So they don't ask money from tenants. So other people, they've been getting their money from their small houses, from their small businesses, now they don't have money. Those are the people who are supposed to go to elections. If you ask them, me, I've been asking them, they say instead of elections, after all, what difference are we going to see?
There is something I wanted to...
going to come back.
If you don't,
I'm just
if you don't mind.
I'm just concluding this statement. They are saying, what difference are we going to see? You would rather get that money which you are injecting in elections and loan us for our small business so that we can go back into the economy and move on. Because these elections are not going to deliver anything, any difference for Ugandans.
Okay.
The issue I wanted to raise for Nano Matembe when he raised this, it is as if President Museveni is also the president of Kenya, president of Tanzania, president of America, president of so many countries where they are in real economic strife just because of COVID and the civil liberties that have been curtailed by those countries in order to save lives. If we were talking about President Museveni doing this in Uganda single-handedly and it isn't happening anywhere, you'd think that he's doing so because he's a dictator.
What have they done?
But I want to tell you that what is happening in the US, what is happening in the...
done?
The
lockdown. They supplemented the people who don't have job money. Did you know what they did?
Did you listen to the State of the Nation? And did you see the provisions that government is going to do in order to redeem the people that are happening? Finally, let me raise one thing which Honorable Segona was raising. Because may I know and respect Honorable Segona as a very senior lawyer. And when he raises this argument, even the other day I was in Parliament, and I listened, some of members of Parliament, some of them from the NRM, raising how the provisions of the law or the regulations were bordering on being unconstitutional. And they required the Attorney General and his team to answer. Because now these are two different opinions from two different people. When these regulations have been passed, did they prevent somebody who would wish to seek litigation and find out what the court's adjudication is? Because these are liberties that are guaranteed by the Constitution. And my friend, Honorable Segona, being a senior lawyer, I know these are some of the things that they would do for us who are not lawyers so that we can learn from their exercises and practices. But I know for us as a party, I come here as a spokesperson of the party, we know that there is a legal regime. There is a constitution that provides for an election. There is a constitution that provides for the term of a president. And there is a constitution that determines the circumstances and manner and when a state of emergency may be declared. And if in the wisdom of the president, because the law allows the president to do that, because I don't know why people would be pushing for the declaration of a state of emergency when nobody has died. I don't know what they would have done if actually people would start dying in Uganda.
Okay.
Actually, we are in a state of emergency the moment you have the laws suspended.
Yes.
It's an emergency. Your president is just shy and is avoiding the declaration for opportunistic reasons.
Yes.
Opportunistic reasons because I think he was told that, oh, if the 6 months spill beyond your term, Kadaga will take over, and said, oh my God, I'm sure he's now dreaming Kadaga is taking over my chair. It is now.
How will Kadaga take over?
That's what the Constitution says.
What does it say?
If the state of emergency spills beyond 6 months, the 6 months spill beyond the term of office of the president, the speaker takes over.
Which section is that?
You will read.
Is that not
you
going
were
the
there. It's an
Constitution?
article.
Because I have been reading the Constitution,
I thought
trying to understand,
I
because
thought you wanted me to clarify to you matters which are so
because you
please,
are not
you know,
quoting the specific article of the law, and we can cross-check.
you will cross-check. You will read
You
the
may not to
Constitution.
remember, but it is
No,
there.
you will read the Constitution for yourself. You know why the Constitution has suffered is that it is interpreted lawyers and plumbers as well.
It was made by plumbers
Yeah,
and farmers, not lawyers.
That's the point I'm making, sir. And that is why it has been a victim. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have not contested that there is no need to make regulations. Kenya and all other countries you're talking about have made provisions in accordance with their laws. I have told you that here you have transgressed on your own constitution. That's the first point. The second point, you did ask me the circumstances under which that extension is possible. I am alive to the provisions of Article 77, Article 103, and Article 105.
What does it say?
Now, 77 and 103 envisage an extension in a situation where there is war or an emergency. Now, when you're interpreting the Constitution, you do not interpret it mechanically. You interpret it generously, purposively, to arrive at why these people who made the Constitution had to make it that way and what they had in mind. Now, when you talk about an emergency, and you're telling me that COVID-19 is so big a problem that you can suspend provisions of the Constitution relating to liberty, then it is an emergency within the provisions of Articles 77 and 103. Now, the only trouble comes with 105, because 105 is entrenched, and according to Article 260, you amend it by going for a referendum. That's the entrenchment of going to the people. To begin with, first of all, because the president himself is selfish, even where you could amend and extend the tenure of parliament, he says, once mine is not amended, no. Two, we even had information that the president was saying, these MPs want to extend for 2 years. For me, my 5 years are guaranteed. If they're saying 5, I'm okay with it.
Whom did he tell that?
Well, I am,
Okay,
I am
gentlemen and
silly
lady,
enough to know how to package my words.
Let's take a very quick break, and then when we come back, I'll open the lines. You're going to see the numbers on your screen so you can ring and tell us what you think, because this is also your moment to join the discussion. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On The Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guests tonight are Honorable Medad Segona, Honorable Dr. Miriam Atembe, and Honorable Emmanuel Dombo.
I was concluding with just 2 points.
Okay.
The first, one of the issues that have been raised by my brother Emmanuel is, why don't you litigate so that the courts can also guide us? Yes, we have litigated. I've been litigating for the last 18 years. And we have defeated government in many instances.
In some cases.
In many cases, incidentally. And if you knew the budget arising out of that litigation, it is now in trillions. Now, because of the primitive arrogance of some of our players, saying, no, you go to court. By the time you come out of court, this would have been overtaken by events. And indeed it has happened. The referendum and other provisions act where Dr. Sebogerere and Honorable Zachary Olum went to court twice, etc. Yes, by the time you come out of court, it's overtaken by events. But let me ask, why would the country suffer that astronomical cost arising out of litigation? Simply because some people are reckless, because some people are selfish and self-centered, etc. Finally, the 2 points. One, he talked about the budget for etc., Posho, etc. We give them money. For example, they came for a supplementary for 59 billion Uganda shillings to buy Posho and beans for 2 districts. They never served even 25% of that.
Imagine.
Why? They must have stolen that money because it was their budget. It was based on projections. It was based on statistics. And now, very finally, when my brother, Honorable Dombo, starts asking questions, the president, you are the biggest victim of the presidential lie. You, Patrick Kamara. You remember when you recorded and you passed on to the same lie to us, where the president was telling you, at 75, you're not good to run for president. You asked him a specific question. Would you be running for president? He said, certainly not, certainly not. No. There is a scientific study, and now he's telling us about science of elections. This is a man who fired his ministers, including his childhood friend, Eria Kategaya, while he was away. He fired the Honorable Matembe, the Honorable Sarah Chinji, the Honorable Bidandi, simply because they had advised him against amending the constitution to run again. This is the same man who told you a lie that he cannot stand. And the cost we paid as a country was he even amended the constitution.
And
to
we
run.
had gone around the whole country, the reason why I told him he can't go, telling everybody, please, this is our last chance. Give us the last opportunity. Imagine making us deceive with him. So when he came and said, no, I'm going back, I said, excuse me, I cannot go back to the people and tell them a lie. Please don't. He said, get out of
No,
here.
it started,
What I know,
it started 4 years. No, the constitution sets 2 terms. Just give me one, I implement the
Hey,
constitution.
and we'll
He
go
got
and
it.
talk.
No, let me have my last time in the constitution.
Mr. Kamara, what
Say.
I know, and the president was right, there is no science which says when you become 80 or 75, you become senile and you cannot provide leadership.
He told Kamara
just
on,
a moment.
on screen. No,
Because,
before
what-
this, Dombo.
No.
Let us not mislead.
I
He
was-
told
I-
Kamara
I
on
was just a
screen
voice, I was telling
that
the
there
nation.
is a science, that there is scientific study to the effect that after 75 you are not effective.
Well,
He's
the
saying
man
it
is
on
noted on
TV.
the ballot
No,
paper anyway.
what I know is that when you look at the US and you look at the 2 contenders for the president and you look at their age, really, so it wouldn't show that there is that science. First of all, I
So
don't
the
know whether
president was lying when he said there is that science.
that is a question you must ask the president. But now we are talking about science.
You're here speaking for him.
We are talking about science. Because when you look at the candidates in the United States, for instance, I can on President Trump or his other competitor from the Democratic Party, and you look at their age, really it shows you that science does not work.
We are talking about a presidential lie. The president tells you, I will not, and he does.
But you amended the constitution in parliament, and it's changed those provisions which had been put in parliament, which had been put in the constitution.
And do you know how many MPs are limping because of that? Do you know how SFC ravaged and battered members of parliament?
Let me open
When
your
you tell me I
line.
amended,
Hear
don't
what you
insult
guys are
me.
saying.
Do not insult me that I amended that constitution.
Parliament,
When I was
let
in
me get
prison,
to know.
Those were the
they
powers of
amended it
parliament.
when I was
Okay.
in the cells.
I
And
think
you
now
call-
we
you're
need to
saying I
listen
amended.
to. I need to let us
But
hear from
Dombo, I
what.
was with you in parliament when I voted against removal of term limit. Are you going to say, but Miria, you were there in parliament? You know I voted against
No,
it.
but
You
parliament-
know
Okay.
you voted against
When the
it.
constitution was made,
Okay.
they gave powers for amendment of the constitution to the parliament. And when parliament has done it,
And what was
who
the
else
role of
would I
SFC?
ask?
What was the role of SFC in amending the constitution?
That one, the constitutional court had a declaration on it. I
Okay,
don't know what
let me
decisions
take a
they
call
made.
on. Let me take a call on, and at least I get to know what. For those Ugandans who will be able to go.
Dombo,
through,
you used to
maybe-
be sensible. You used to be more sensible than what I see here.
Okay,
What happened?
I thought even you when you had government,
We have a call on
there are
line.
things that he used to do.
Hello.
The wrong
Yes.
ones?
Good day. Let's listen to this person online. Hello. What's your name, sir? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Bomba. My name is Ahmed Sharif.
Ahmed Sharif.
Yes.
You're on air, sir.
Yeah, I know those people of NRM just fear Bobby Wine.
Okay, that's what you've just said. You think people of NRM are scared of Bobby Wine? You've made your point. Let me try to take another caller online. I have a call
Hello?
online. Hello.
Yes, this is Gizu Livingston. I am a district councillor calling in from Kagadi.
Okay, Gizibu, you're on air.
Thank you so much, Kamara, Council Segona, Matembe, and my comment, Emmanuel. We've seen Parliament pass the resolution today, But you have people like Idili Sebo Emmanuel who have gone to court challenging the same regulations and the roadmap of the EC. So now, when you look at the Article 61 of the Constitution,
who is this Emmanuel? Who is Dean? Who is this Dean going to court?
Dean Sebo Emmanuel is a very strong NRM cadre and is vying for Western vice chairperson NRM Western.
Okay, all right, okay.
Now, when you look at the issue of the scientific election, the Constitution doesn't talk about the scientific election. Article 61 talks about electoral should always organize a free and fair election. But the word scientific is not entailed. Is not within the free and fair election. So I don't see, because now, if President Museveni knows really that the Ugandans want him, they really like him, I don't see why he should ban it.
Agizibo, let me ask, you're a councillor, are you in the NRM party?
Of course, I'm a NRM party, but
so on this one, you are against your own party.
Don't disturb him.
Not really,
Speaking
but
sense.
it's not all about being against my own party. It's all about seeing issues the way they're supposed to be seen.
Yes.
Being in the NRM doesn't necessarily mean that I should follow whatever is being done within the NRM. But my point is that we shouldn't be hurrying to organize such a kind of an election which is not fair and fair, which is not mandated within the Constitution. So on the issue of I had my comrade Emmanuel talking about the issue of radios reaching down into that you find people in the villages have radios, they have phones and radios reaching everywhere. I represented some county called Iliga that the border of Congo. Actually, from my sub-county to Congo, it takes around 1.5 hours to cross to Congo.
Okay, Agizibo there in Kagadi representing Ndaiga is also told us. You know, I wanted clarity because that he's an NRM person who now seems not happy with what. I just wanted that one to come out. That's why I was trying to maybe to interrupt. Let me get maybe two more and then I'll get back to the. Hello. We have a call online. Hello. Okay, probably you can join later.
He mentioned something called a normal election. You know, normal election is in the Constitution, that word normal election. It is in Articles 77 and 103. And what the language that the Constitution uses, situations where it is not possible to hold a normal election. Now, the question you would ask, Honorable Dombo, for example, tonight, is this so-called scientific election a normal election envisaged in the Constitution? And where is the science?
I can respond to that.
Is it a normal election?
Because I don't know when you ask the word normal.
It's in the Constitution.
Whether you are referring to English or you are referring to law.
Law.
If you are referring to law, the Constitution in that article which talks about normal elections was talking about circumstances when you'd have a regular election as prescribed in the Constitution. And when they referred to abnormal situations, are the only situations which would create somebody or the country to go abnormal elections. Those are elections which are not scheduled, for instance, if a president resigns, if a president dies, or if a president is impeached. The elections under the circumstances would be abnormal elections because they would not be the regular elections as prescribed in the Constitution. Can you bring the article and we read it and we look at it?
You said you can
what
Google
are you
and guess.
saying? Is it in the article?
No.
What you are
Because,
saying
and then the
that's
second
right
point,
now?
which I want also to clarify, the person who was ringing, because that issue was raised in Parliament and was responded to by the Attorney General, and he clarified it, and there were many senior counsels who did concur with the interpretation that he gave. The second issue which I want to raise was my friend from Kagadi, when he talks about the scientific elections. I don't know whether that word scientific has been captured in the regulations that were passed. What I know is that we are talking about the digital elections, which we are going to go through under the circumstances because of the COVID that is happening now. So the word scientific has been used by people because President Museveni talked about scientific processes when he talked about COVID, but in the regulations that they passed, I wouldn't know because I haven't gone through all of them. And I would want to seek clarification from Honorable Segona.
Certainly,
Okay.
there is
Whether-
no word science.
Okay.
Science,
This is what we're going to
because
do.
there's no science.
If
Yes.
you can also make your concluding remark, then I'll go to Honorable Segona and conclude with Dr. Matembe. Your parting shot.
First and foremost, I want to tell you and tell Ugandans that there are many people who have been talking about declaration of the state of emergency at a time when they know the president's short term will be expiring around May next year. And many of the people who have advanced that argument, they don't argue because they want free and fair elections or because their civil liberties have been curtailed. Many people would want to look at that as an opportunity to do a regime change. Unfortunately, which was not anticipated under the articles that have been provided for. When we talk about a normal election, and I want to argue with my brother Segona, even to the listeners, when they go back to the Constitution, the word normal elections, as prescribed in the Constitution, in that article in which it is, was referring to the regular elections as prescribed for in the Constitution. To us as a party, I don't make any laws. For me, I'm not a member of parliament. But to us as a party, we know there is a subsisting legal regime which provides for the arrangement of elections. And then two, there is a constitutional provision which provides for, one, the elections, but also the expiry of a term of a president. And in the circumstances, I would leave this question to our listeners. Supposing you are the president who took an oath to defend and protect the Constitution, but at the same time, you have a responsibility to ensure that the people of Uganda are alive and they are protected using the instruments that have been put at your disposal. What would you do? And the people who are arguing that actually let them leave the Ugandans to do the way it has been done elsewhere, in Burundi, in Malawi, and where the COVID spike has gone high, would you be making the same arguments? If right now we have over 500 deaths in Uganda, or even if we had 10, should the 10 die in order for us to make the right decisions? Supposing you are the president, under the circumstances, what would you have done? I want to thank everybody for being good listeners to us.
If I were the president, I would protect both life and the Constitution. That's number one. To Ugandans out there, do not despair. This is not the first time we're having dictatorship in this country. We do not expect to get these freedoms on a silver platter. The struggle will continue. And I can tell you, we shall overcome. God has been gracious to us. Through the participation of everybody, we have been protected by the grace. This business of one all-powerful, omniscient, omnipotent president, forget. Those are fictions. The gentleman is an ordinary mortal like you and I.
And he's way out.
And he's wearing out very fast. And God willing. By the way, it is very painful for me to imagine that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and he's still the president. But if the situation is so bad, I would let him continue for another 2 weeks until we are able to organize the normal elections. Finally, let me correct my brother. The normal election talked about in Articles 77 and 103 has nothing to do with the circumstances you're talking about. It is envisaged that there could be a situation caused by war or emergency. And some people wanted to add the word pandemic. To me, a pandemic is an emergency. So in situations where you cannot organize a free and fair election, do not waste our money, do not waste our time. You know, in elections you kill people, do not kill our people for nothing. Where you turn the NRM into the state, the RDCs there using government resources, and you're talking about, yes, there are some advantages of incumbency. We do not mind those advantages of incumbency, which are naturally attached. But we are talking about the total breakdown of institutions where the gentleman, one all-powerful gentleman, has swallowed institutions. He has institutionalized himself and individualized institutions. May God bless Uganda as we see the money exiting. Thank you.
Dr. Matembe, your parting shot.
For me, I want to tell Ugandans that it is very, very clear that we cannot talk of free and fair elections. We cannot talk of any democratic principles with these rules which I have seen very clearly, which violate the constitution of the nation, which violate the constitutional political parties, which entrenches people in positions which where the president overthrows the parties of the internal democracy within other organizations, where he has become supreme and the only one. So I don't, in fact, me, he says, if I was the president, what would I say? I have clearly said it, that if I'm so scared of this pandemic and I want to protect our people and that kind of thing, then I would not hold these elections, because they are the avenues for not holding these elections in this way are there. So I'm calling upon, for me it was, if it was me, if these elections are to continue, I would, if I was all these other political parties and whose interests are not recognized at all, who are being dictated upon, instead of accepting to violate my internal democratic principles, when I'm talking of offering democratic leadership, I would simply leave this man to go to elections alone. This is a time where now the political parties would say, but surely, how President Museveni comes and orders the political parties to organize their internal democracy in the way he wants, and you succumb and submit to that, and you are calling yourself an independent political party? For me, I would advise these political parties, just get out, just relax and leave these elections alone, and they go at the elections themselves alone. Why give them legitimacy? Why go with this government which doesn't understand, which doesn't know the rights of the people, whom it is even trying to protect, where they protect human life without protecting their rights to anything else except the
Thank
COVID.
you. Thank you very much.
So I want to call upon you Ugandans, it is time you wake up and rise up and resist
All right.
all this nonsense.
Thank you very much,
you
Dr.
break
Miriam Matembe. Thank you very
No.
much, Honorable Emmanuel Dombo and Honorable Medad Segona. One thing that we need to do as Ugandans is to keep peace and let us not divide ourselves. And if you're going to vote, vote wisely. And we have one country called Uganda, and we need it together. Even when you hear people here disagreeing, I know it's not that they hate each other. I'm sure it's because they love Uganda more. Good night and God bless Uganda.